This is Patrick Roth, Senior Support Technician for E1 Business Solutions. Today we're going to look at a scenario that we run in from time to time, and I thought we'd go over a common problem that you see and how to solve it. So in this case, the scenario is that I want to run an integration to whatever destination. This would happen to be GP, but it wouldn't make any difference. And what they would like to see is that if there's a failure, they would like it to write the error code into some table. Usually it's the source table, but it could be a tracking table, it could be whatever, it doesn't matter. So in this case, if I run this integration, it's going to fail because I had a eConnect error, and now it failed. So what they would want to do is capture that error, and they would like to put it back in the source table. What they note often enough is that this usually works, but once in a while it doesn't, and they can't figure out why the once in a while doesn't. And so it's difficult to say. You'd have to run a SQL profile trace, because in the end you need to be able to see what the SQL statement generated by the insert is happening, and you want to see, why does this one fail and why does this one work. So if we pull back our integration, so what they end up doing then is we want to track that. So I had enabled this. Let me re-enable it and let's take a look at it. And so we're going to update our source table, which is this PMTRX data table, and then the global last error is a SmartConnect global variable that would contain that last error that we saw. And the key fields on the table and the transaction is the vendor ID and doc number. So they're going to set that. And so if we look at it, we have single quotes around our strings, single quotes around our strings. This all looks pretty good. Okay. And now when we run it, okay, we don't see our other error, which the reason why is because it's hidden by this one. It's going to be logged in the SmartConnect event log, but we're getting SQL errors. So we see our SQL task failed, the right error failed, and it's giving us syntax errors. Now, if we look at our simple SQL, we didn't have any syntax errors. And then, I don't show an example here of a different error that would get written, but in their case, it's possible that, batch doesn't exist, document already exists, et cetera, and we just want to write that back into the table. And if we look at our table, indeed, our error string is still blank. So our task failed. Now, like I said, this is difficult to see without a SQL profile trace because you don't know. But if we would take the time to do that, what we would see, and what we didn't see there because it's not showing the SQL, is that there's a single quote. So we need to disable this, and we'll get back to the original error. So if we look at it, there's a single quote doesn't match the single quote there and actually there. So there's two single quotes. In SQL then, the task is going to fail because the single quote is the character that goes around the string, just like we saw in our code in the vendor ID and the document number. And in the error, we need the single quotes to surround our string. Well, in this case, we have single quotes within the string, which makes this end up blowing up. And so what we need to do is it's called escaping. So in almost every language, usually the escape character is the character that's the offensive one. So in this case, the single quote. So what we want is when we write this back into the table, we need to put an extra single quote in front of this one and an extra single quote in this one, so that it actually does go in. Now we could try, and I'm not going to show it here, but we could try to go in, is to re-enable this task in, is we could say, oh sure, well, how would we do that? Because you do it. So what you would maybe think about doing is you could use the replace function, right? And we could use the replace function here, and then you say, well, I'll just replace the single quotes here with two single quotes, and that would do it. And while you would think that would, it won't, because this is going to be the entire text replaced by SmartConnect in the string. And so in the replace function, it's already unbalanced with that. So we can't use the replace here, but that is still the answer though. We do need to replace the single quote with two single quotes, but we can't do it here because again, the syntax would be bad. So what you kind of have to do is cheat a little bit and use something that's not not a problem with single quotes. So what we can do is use .NET. Now in .NET, we're not writing the SQL, so there's no problem. You actually have the same kind of problem in .NET strings if we were trying to put double quotes in a string, since the separator around strings in .NET is double quotes. So if we needed a double quote in it, you actually have to kind of do the same thing, which does get a little bit tricky. So in this case, we're in good shape. We don't have to worry about it. So what I'm going to do is I'll just cheat, paste that into my thing. And so we're going to use a user-defined global variable. I had created this previously, GBL_MSG. Obviously, it doesn't make any difference what you call it. It's whether it's initialized or not doesn't make any difference. So what we're going to do is take that GlobalLastError that's filled with our actual error and might have single quotes in it, might not. And we'll replace it. So it's the same kind of replace method. And what we're going to replace, we're going to replace with the single quotes. Now we wouldn't have to do this. This is the Microsoft.VisualBasic.char function, and 39 is the single quote character. So if we wanted to, we could go double quote, single quote, double quote, but that's really hard to read on this video. So that is hard to read. So what we'll just do is we'll replace the single quote, and then we will put in single quote plus another single quote. So we're going to replace our single quote with 2 single quotes. And if we double check, make sure that it's right, validation successful. Now, if we look, we'll notice that our tasks are out of order here because I already have the SQL one done. So all we have to do is just drag and drop. So we're going to flip you over here. And so we'll do the single quote first, and it's going to put our actual message, whether we have a single quote or not. It's going to replace them if there is, and it won't hurt anything if there isn't. And we'll stick it in that variable. And then we need to fix this because we don't want to use GlobalLastError anymore. We want to make sure we get that R off. GBL_MSG. So let's make sure we got it right. Single quote, no spaces, single quote, no spaces, and we leave the rest. And we can see down here that it's in the proper order. Now, if I run this, we would expect still to get that error 11.928. And so we run. We do. So 11.986, I guess. And we didn't fail. We have no SQL errors. Did we screw it up? If we rerun this, and now we see. And if we look, difficulty looking since it's so far out, SQL's not going to show us the entire error. But we can see that here's the single quote. So it did go in, you double quote it to escape it, and you get the single quote in the destination. So that's the trick. If you ever have any doubts when you're writing data into your own SQL table, if this was a SQL destination table and we had single quote in our data, SmartConnect takes care of that. It does it fine. But we do have to worry about it if we write it in a SQL task, since we're in charge of the SQL at that point.